The Autobahn series has continued to grow season after season. Impressively entering their ninth one, the talent levels have extended to mesmerizing heights. Despite the changing landscapes, there are some traditions that must always be respected. And in this series, Daytona once again kicks it all off as we get ready to watch round one of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Pekin. With me in the booth covering the prototype and GTLM classes is Adam Young. Keeping us up on the GTD class is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The iconic high banks of this legendary speedway once again transition from being a four-turn oval to a 12-turn road course. To learn more about the layout, let's head down to our track guide. Welcome to the Daytona International Speedway. While many oval fans associate this Central Florida track with mainly NASCAR, the road course has gained just as much worldwide fame thanks to it hosting motorcycles and sports cars for decades. In fact, the flagship road race, the 24 Hours of Daytona, has become a major draw for drivers of all disciplines, many eager to have a go at endurance racing. The stats make this place sound relatively simple, with 12 turns spread among 3.5 miles. Indeed, a majority of the lap is spent on the oval portion, where you fly along the notoriously steep banking. But it's easy to underestimate the challenge presented to the drivers. The infield portion begins with the scary kinked entry of Turn 1. Not only is it the fastest part of the track, but the transition from the banking to the flat tends to upset the car as you slow it down. There's also the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Added in the 80s, this is a tricky piece of circuit that punishes a poor exit severely, with it leading back into the latter half of the oval. As you'd expect, the long periods on throttle mean that drafting tends to play a factor in the racing. It also means passing isn't usually too great of an issue if you have the pace to catch someone. The more difficult thing is managing to gap your opponent so that they don't ride in your slipstream once you get by. With half a century of endurance racing collected among these walls, it's not unfair to say that road racers have just as much claim to call Daytona home. Fans who come to watch certainly won't be disappointed by the high speeds and fantastic thrills it invariably provides each year. It'll be our second night in a row here at the road course, but should be a slightly different flavor. To get an a better idea of exactly what that's going to be like, let's head to Adam Young to talk about the track.
Yeah, of course, Joe, here today, we're actually starting in January. And last night, if you watched the majors race, started in May. So the difference is going to be is that last night the track had a lot more heat in it, where here in virtual standard time, we're back in January, track's not absorbing as much heat, but we are also going to be starting a little bit closer to, well, full daylight. You can see the HPDs out there qualifying right now. So that's going to change the track a little bit over this 12-turn layout, 3.5 mile in length facility. And of course, this place has been around, really since Daytona opened. They broke ground on the road course that year that Daytona actually opened, and it was hosted its first race only a few years later. And this layout has probably seen some of the least amount of changes over the years as far as any road course across the world. It's been the same since about 1985, which is awesome because it always puts on some great racing out there. And I think we're going to see that out there today with just looking at the qualifying times and the lack of a spread. Everybody is so close together in qualifying times here so far.
Yeah, we were commenting before we went live about the GTLMs, which we'll get to a little later, how tight everything is in that class. Let's take a look at last season's championship, though, as that's going to be important considering the storylines that carry over between the rivalries of drivers. Jason Girard managed to take a championship over Billy Smith, and Leif Peterson wasn't too far behind Billy Smith by the last race there, but it was Girard who really ran away with things by the end of it. Can he carry the momentum this time around is the big question. I don't believe he's actually racing in the prototypes this season. We'll get to that in a little bit. Dean Mole and John Ulmer rounding out the top five. Ulmer, his usual inconsistent finishes, unfortunately, cost him a higher points championship. Let's then go to the GTLMs as well.
Yeah, GTLMs, this is one that's going to be really tight today, and it was tighter at the end of last season as well. Stephen McGarvey coming home in first place with the championship there, followed by Mike Young, only 72 back, which really is just a couple of races that he ended up being better than. William Laster in third, Oliver Turcotte in fourth, and Ryan Huff in fifth. And really most of those guys out there, so I think most of them are returning to the GTLM class.
Yeah, and the GTD class is one of the most fascinating. They had a very interesting season last season with the drivers going into the Spa Francorchamps with Kevin Santana in the lead But having a poor race, Mike Major, who didn't win any races last season, took home the championship with 328 points. Paul Slavonic made a late season charge to come home second, with Kevin Santana slipping to third at Spa. Shane Hunter and Lionel Duprat both had bad races in the last couple races of the season, so fell down to fourth and fifth as well.
And there's a team's championship in this series. We'll try to keep you up to speed on that as the season goes by. It's very hotly contested and important to the drivers. SRN Orange came away with it. 103 points is a decent amount, but not as comfortable as probably they would have liked, as SRN Gray certainly challenged them all the way to the final round. Lamberti West took third with TMC Crimson in fourth and TMC Clover in fifth. Really, the closest there was between the top two, it seems, in a lot of the cases. Now, Lindy, what are we in for today? Because, again, we said a little bit different flavor. The race is not going to be quite like what we saw with the majors last night.
Yeah, definitely. This is round 1 of 14 for the Autobahn series, their season opener. We got a 90-minute race this evening, so it's quite a bit shorter, but also a 67% fuel percentage limit for these three classes: the prototypes with the HPDs, the GTLMs, and the GTD class. It's open setup, but no spare car, so these drivers are going to have to be very careful with what they do out there, as well as 36 incidents that they have before they get automatically DQ'd. So expect to see quite a bit of action tonight, but also drivers being a little bit careful through that bus stop.
Right now, qualifying is going on for the fastest class as Miguel Vigo holds the provisional pole, and they've got a little less than 8 minutes left here. Usually, Adam, they've got, John Ulmer strong on the American tracks, and since they start with the American swing, he's on the front row right now. It's not looking bad, at least in terms of qualifying for him.
No, it's really not. And John Ulmer, I mean, he's just quick in these HPDs. It's always fun to watch him in these HPDs. And yeah, sometimes he runs into bad luck and this and that and the other thing. But I'll tell you, I've had the pleasure of driving some John Ulmer sets in the HPD, and they drive like a dream. He knows how to set up these cars. He knows what the ins and outs of them are. And now, of course, he gets bumped back to third with McGarvey moving up to the pole. But I'm always got my eye on Ulmer when it comes to Daytona.
Talked about Gerard being in the prototypes. He is indeed racing them here today, but he's only 12th, curiously. Not sure if that's a lack of practice or what. This is certainly not typical of him. You mentioned Steve McGarvey managed to put himself up top ahead of Vigo, and Ulmer. Cronin rounds out the top two rows, and they still got plenty of time to try and improve as we watch Hill now try to get better than 17th. That's not going to be a quicker lap, though, for the 13.
Yeah, interestingly enough, even though Gerard is struggling a little bit, he's also he's less than half a second off of pole. So that just shows you how competitive these three classes are right now. We have two classes right now where most of the drivers are under 1 second. As I say that, Gerard goes up to P5 only before Jason DeVries takes it and drops him back down to P6. So quite a few drivers gaining time now as the cloud sets over the track.
Yeah, I'm looking at Carlos Villa here right now. He's getting the pull from his teammate. Okay, so I think they were on an outlap there, but Miguel Vigo does improve his time a little bit. Doesn't improve position, but does improve his time.
This is starting to look a lot more familiar up at the top. McGarvey, Ulmer, DeVries, Gerard, Wolf, these are all very quick drivers. I'm waiting for Billy Smith to get in there as well. He was very fast last season, but right now he sits in 10th. Also, similarly, less than half a second behind the pole. So it is quite small margins that we've been talking about between these drivers, and why we've got a few that look like they're out of place. Looks like Rutgers Kev comes back once again. And he's going to try and improve this time by on that 34.1. Let's see what it is. It's a 34.4, so just about 0.3 off his quickest.
Look at Cronin there, and Cronin's going to jump up to fourth with a 33.912. So good lap there from Brendan Cronin.
It definitely seems like these drivers are gaining more time later on in this qualifying session, as the track is holding steady at 83 degrees, so not a huge amount of variation in track temperature, but I just think that these HPDs getting a little bit less fuel, starting to warm up their tires a little bit more, are starting to gain a little bit more time.
Ooh, Dominic, again, you can help me with the name pronunciation. Olivieri just moved to the provisional pole by a good margin.
He is a newcomer to this series, so I actually don't have a name pronunciation for him yet. I'll check to see if in the info they've given us. Olivier, we're hearing potentially here for the number 22, and that is, what is this, about 3/100ths quicker than Miguel Vigo at the moment. So,
which Miguel Vigo, that just happened. I mean, that was he because Dominic took the pole over Stephen McGarvey. Miguel moves up in between while we were talking about that. So very good lap there for Miguel.
Boy, it has swapped around a lot here in just the, well, let's see, 4 or 5 minutes we've been watching this qualifying. Clearly, drivers are finding something, like you were just saying, 82 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface.
Yeah, and I actually think it has more to do with what Adam was talking about a minute ago. Now cloud cover took over. So, it's amazing the difference that a little bit of cloud cover will make here.
And they're coming down to the last 3 minutes 30. So these drivers, I saw a lot of drivers just pull out of the pits. So watching Kyle come across the line, trying to improve from 17th. But a lot of these drivers just came out of the pits, so they have time for about 1, maybe 2 more laps if they get to the line quickly.
Luke Carbonneau is going to cross the line. It's only his second time lap here, and that gets a 34.5. That's 0.3 improvement, up to 14th for the number 25 machine. Dean Mole also trying to find some time, and he does, and he displaces for that 14th spot with a 34.3. Dave Hill coming around. Looks like he's on an outlap that time, so he's going to get 1 or 2 more tries to try and improve. Vigo also on an outlap, because that one does not set a time that time by. Looks like DeVries is rolling back out, so he's going to try and get 1 more in. Kevin O'Keefe has reset the car and has got fresh tires on it. Jason Girard this time improves to a 33.9, still only good enough for 7th for the O2 machine. Let's see what Ulmer's got. He's got 2 timed laps, make it 3 with a 33.7, and that doesn't give him any more positions, incredibly.
And
he'll be done for this session.
Yeah, just to explain, he was coming across there underneath the double yellow lines on the apron through the dog leg, and the league has deemed that to be legal, but other places on the banking where the double yellow line exists will be out of bounds for passing during the race. So what he did was perfectly legal and perfectly able to do to get a qualifying time.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of leagues will say that you can't do that except on the last lap, where here, if you're not accustomed to seeing it, it's going to be legal the entire race as far as on the apron in the tri-oval. So, I don't expect people to take advantage of that too much, but I do think we'll see it at least a little bit, because it can be an advantage to maybe try to get around some of the slower classes, especially, too, if you get stuck in that position.
We're watching Dave Hill, but now we got cameras on Billy Smith, still trying to get higher than this 11th spot, and he doesn't do it that time. 1 more to go for him. He's followed by Josh Wolf, also starting his final flyer, as his last lap was not able to go faster than his 34 flat. Ooh, and, oh no, who just jumped DeVries? Was that Girard? That was Girard, who gets himself up to 6 with a 33.8 that time. That seems a little more likely for the O2.
It just took a minute to get his groove. That's okay.
This is a very competitive group right now. We're looking at Carlos Vila coming across for his last lap. Only have 15 seconds left, so any drivers coming across the line right now, they're going to have 10 seconds left to start a lap. Otherwise, they will be finished with the laps that they're putting on.
I think Strykar is going to be the last one to be able to start a new lap. And then Pelchat just crosses as the time runs out, but he does not improve. Next, it's going to be Dave Hill, still sitting down in 18th. He'll be giving a big tow to Billy Smith, who I was mentioning is trying to get faster. Miguel Vigo must have had an off because he slows down out of the bus stop, decides he's not happy with how that lap went.
Yeah, we'll see what Dave Hill's able to come across the line, and Billy Smith will be about a second or two behind him. And does not improve on his time. Billy Smith does improve on his time. He'll move him up to 10th in that Lamborghini Racing machine.
And looking to see if anybody behind them are able to come across here. Looks like Jason DeVries will set a time. He sits in 8th, but he doesn't go quicker. So he'll stay put in that 8th position. Brennan Cronin abandons his final lap in a very spectacular way. And that is the last of our... Yeah,
Kyle Strikers is still out there. All right.
I don't believe... Yeah, I'm pretty sure Strikers...
Yeah, actually, he did by a couple of seconds. It was the guy behind him that didn't.
I don't remember which it was.
Yeah, so I think he will be setting a time here.
Yeah, and sitting down in 17th, he's got a lot of room to try and jump up the order. Let's see what this privateer driver can do as he crosses. He goes quicker yet again. It's a 34.3, but he stays in 17th, sadly.
Yeah, but that puts that entire field there, Joe, almost within a second of each other, just with 2 exceptions.
Just incredible. Let's go through the starting grid then. It is going to be Dominic Olivier, who will be starting on the pole. Miguel Vigo comes in with a splash, returning after a little time off and starting in 2nd. Stephen McGarvey, one of our champions, has started in 3rd today. Clifton Naranjo will be P4. Then in row 3, it's John Olmert, who is inside. Jason Girard, old rivals here in this series, will be starting in 6th. Brennan Cronin all the way down to 7th, despite being as high as 2nd at one point. Jason DeVries starts P8 with Josh Wolf in 9th. Billy Smith will be P10. After that, you've got Carlos Villa on the inside of the row of 6th row, with Kevin O'Keefe starting in 12th, Luke Carbonneau in 13th, and Michael Overray in P14. Jimbo Pfeiffer returns for more racing here at Daytona after last night for 15th spot. Dean Mullen 16th, and Kyle Strikars in 17th. Last 2 in our prototype grid is Dave Hill in 18th and Patrick Pelchat in 19th.
Yeah, your GTLMs is going to start with Oliver Turcotte out there, leading them down to the green. Scott McGarvey will start in 2nd. 3rd place is going to go to Vance Bow. Brian Huff will be in 4th position. Daniel Johnson in 5th once the green flag falls. John McQueen in, I believe, 6th position. Mike Young in 7th. Taj Edwards will start today in 8th. Leif Peterson in 9th. And Daniel Gralty will be in 10th. Corey Roon is going to start in 11th. Bradley Haley will be out there in 12th. Kevin Binkley in 13th position. Hopefully lucky 13 for him today. Jose Gomez will be in 14th. Mark Wilson in 14th. Carter Cunninger will be in 15th. And Robert Kinsian in 16th, and I believe there will be one more out there in the GTLM, and that's going to be Mark Schindel, who will start 17th on that grid.
Kevin Santana is going to take pole for the GTDs with Ryan Wash alongside him. A new name to the series. Paul Slavonic starting off in 3rd next to Mike Major, last year's series winner. Then in 5th, it is Sheldon Rosenbaum alongside Shane Hunter in 6th. Eric Intilli, Lionel Duprat, and Tim McLeish are going to round out your top 10. Then we have Sean A. Fleming, Joey Trungale, Mark Kadrowski, Jared Eaton, and Jerry Mueller, followed by Marty Jeffries, Matt Owens, Chris Sherburne, Corey Mitchell, and Martin Roy. And then there is Nathan S. Lewis, who's a prototype who didn't set a time. He'll be starting at the back of the prototype field.
Quick rundown on how this team championship works as we get ready to start half a pace lap here. Essentially, they have one driver per class out there. However, you can't just stack a team with the hottest drivers out there. The AM class, the GTDs, are required to be the gold license or lower, or silver license or lower, excuse me, with the gold and platinum belonging to the HPD and GTE class. Of course, you are then up against drivers who are of a similar skill level to you if you are racing down in those GTD cars, and hence why you have to have one of, I believe it's, you can have one platinum and then a mix of a couple silver and bronze, or a gold and a silver. I'll go over that in a little bit and get into detail of all the iterations. But right now, we've got a lot of action coming our way, so really no time to try and go into how they can split those up. But it will come into play into that team championship. So we'll definitely want to go over that so that you understand exactly how they can try and size up these teams. Right now, Olivier has waited for the pace car to duck in. Pace car is in now. Green flag is out. Dominic gets on the loud pedal as to his outside. Vigo, a very good start from him here on this rolling start. He's going to try and challenge him as he stays by his side, and he's good on the brakes down into the first corner, already up into the lead. That's going to give the top spot to Miguel, as third is settled by Naranjo. McGarvey moves back into fourth. Otherwise, it's clean. Let's go to the GTLMs.
Yeah, GTLMs just went live, crossing the start-finish line now. Oliver Takate got a great jump. He's going to be completely clean going into turn one, followed by Scott McGarvey. And they get to Vince Bow and then also Ryan Huff. They're having to fight for positioning there going through turn one. And it looks like despite running side by side back there, a lot of guys got through clean. GT3s.
Kevin Santana gets a great jump on Ryan Wash, who's being hounded by Paul Slavonic. Mike Major back there didn't get a great start either, but he's been clean. So it looks like we're going to go almost single file through turn one. We have a couple of takers in the back of the field, but it looks like the GTDs are being pretty respectful. Let's see how they take the first horseshoe. Look at that. Kevin Santana out to quite a bit of a lead. Mike Major trying to get on the back of that third place driver, not able to do it.
There's a few worries coming into this about whether or not we'd get some clean racing, but it certainly seems like drivers are respectful here at the start. But as we come back to the prototypes, certainly aggressive down at the bus stop, as Olivier has to hold off Naranjo and McGarvey. There you see the orange and white machine of Stephen McGarvey on the high side, trying to move himself up into second place. He's going to tow along John Ulmer in the process, and I think they're going to be able to manage the drivers who were in second and third before. Maybe not quite. Olivier holds on. Oh, and he's going to go all the way back up into second place. Wow.
Yeah, very, very good move there, especially with McGarvey also saving that car. Being out of line early in the race is sometimes tough. Hey, Joe, if the majors race last night was any indication here at Daytona, kicking off the Daytona season last night, we're in for a whale of a show, especially here today, because that entire hour and a half last night was full of intense action, and this is shaping up to be the same way.
I can report that Taj Edwards had an off in the bus stop when the GTLMs came through. It was a single car incident, so he's all fine by himself. But the lead of the GTDs is coming off of the banking now, and they're having quite an intense battle between Kevin Santana, Ryan Wash, and Paul Slavonic. Those three drivers nose to tail, but it looks like no one's trying to take an opportunity here. Everyone's content just riding in behind Kevin Santana and getting a little bit of fuel in.
What three different stories we've got going on here. With our top three in the GTD. Kevin Santana missing out on the championship just due to inconsistencies. Ryan Wash, a newcomer who clearly has got pace despite the inexperience with this league and already challenging the established group in this GTD class. And then Paul Slavonic, who suddenly came to the fore at the end of last season and was kicking himself for not getting into form earlier on. He could have had a championship in his hands based on the way he finished things out. They are very closely followed by the rest of the cars. You can see quite a train going on. Mike Major, the first one, our current reigning champion here in the AM class.
We got our first casualty of the day. That's going to be Taj Edwards. His Ferrari is pretty beat up on pit road.
Oh, and John Ulmer's around.
This is in the first corner. He got hit by one extra person as they tried to squeak through there, but this started with Brandon Cronin making a little bit of side-to-side contact. Not sure if we're going to get the replay. Nope, looks like we won't be able to see this one.
Ooh, yeah, and of course, not only that, then he got clipped a little bit. I want to say that was Jimbo Pfeiffer that ended up clipping him just a touch, causing some damage there on Ulmer's vehicle.
That moves him all the way back to last place in his class, unfortunately. At least he gets it going. Meanwhile, second place here in the prototypes. trying to be sorted out by Olivier and McGarvey. Vigo is well up ahead. There's 3 seconds between them. They're on lap 3 already, so he's putting a school in on this field very early on. We see from on board our leader just how much of a gap has stretched out. Naranjo's not doing too bad in that number 20. He's starting to reel in McGarvey for 3rd place now. Riding on board with Clifton.
Early trouble spot here so far today. Of course, you expect turn 1 to be, but also I've seen a few guys have some issues in the bus stop, so we'll be keeping an eye on that here as we go through the next little bit as we make that transition into night.
Naranjo did get the spot from Steven in that move that we saw through turn 1. Yeah, it certainly seemed like a lot of the action. Whoa, as McGarvey has to catch it coming off of the International Horseshoe, and he keeps it going, doesn't lose a whole lot of time. And John Ulmer's come in early.
Not surprised by Ulmer coming in early just because of that damage on his front end. His top line speed's going to be down. You might even try to stay in long enough to get that front nose clip replaced.
I could also report that Mark Kedrowski in the GTDs had an incident in the horseshoe in the bus stop as well, so he has come into the pits as well. And the lead in the GTDs is actually closed up quite a bit. It looks like Kevin Santana's doing some fuel saving in the lead, so that's brought up everybody down to Lionel DePratt in 7th, up to this lead pack. And even though the top 5 are starting to get away a little bit, it's still pretty close up there.
Not seeing anybody make a move down into 1 right now. Those top 5 a little bit spread apart. Everybody blowing it up and weaving it around that very tricky corner off the banking into the infield. Other thing I noticed, because we haven't checked in on the GTLMs all that much, is that's also bringing along a train. Olivier Turcotte is pulling along McGarvey, Huff, Bow, and Paquin.
Yeah, they stretch back there. Oh, I believe that's about 8 deep, maybe 9 deep is the car count in that nice train. In fact, already a challenge. Here comes McGarvey. He's going to challenge Turcotte here going into the bus stop for the GTLM lead.
And he's got it. Outbreaks him with a clean maneuver through that chicane. Turcotte had no answer, but might not need to answer. We saw it last night. Fuel was a big talking point here, and I suspect that's going to be the same story, Adam. Oh, we had a wreck with Luke Carbonneau in the infield. This is a single car incident, so I don't know that we need a replay. Just bounded over the curbs on the exit of the International Horseshoe, spun it around, and eventually got it back on track.
Turcotte, by the way, go back to the GTLMs if we can. It almost getting swallowed up there going into turn 1. Ryan Huff's going to get around him. That's another loss of position. He could have lost a few more if he wasn't careful. But man, that pack really jammed up. That went from being an 8-car pack. I think there's now, about 14 or 15 in there.
McGarvey's still leading it, though, ever since he took that away. Huff now ahead of Turcotte. Vance Bow seeing if he could maybe demote him one more position. At some point, the 52's got to stop the bleeding. He was quick at the start of last season, then kind of fell by the wayside as things went on. Come onto the banking once more. Just getting into the shadow of that high banking as the sun starts to go down off in the west.
And I'm keeping my eye on the prototype field as they're cutting their way through the back markers of the GTD field. The GTDs are being pretty respectful, but there's a little bit of argy-bargy going on between a couple of them, especially for 3rd and 4th. Stephen McGarvey and Clifton Naranjo are getting really held up here, and there's contact, actually. They've actually sent around Matt Owens in the GTD class. Significant contact between those 3, and now we have a battle for 4th position between Clinton, Jason, and Brendan.
Yeah, and Brendan was actually 2 wheels off the track trying to brake as he was trying to get space through the traffic there. They did finally get through Owens, and they're going to be clear here on the banking, but that was certainly tense there, at least for a bit. We got an update on what happened to Taj Edwards since he had that early wreck. Apparently his wheel was disconnected and he could not get it to come back together. So hence why he is out of this race early. Sad to see hardware issues have an effect as once more the traffic causing problems here.
Three wide as they go through 3 and 4. This is very close racing for those prototypes. We saw this earlier on in the race in the first couple of minutes, but here they are doing it again. This is very, very close racing for the beginning of this race.
Cronin on the low side, up on the high side. That's Billy Smith as they are still 3 wide behind them. That is Villa who's trying to get into there. See if he could take it all the long way around. Almost loses the car, but the inside line's got the grip and Brennan Cronin fends off all comers.
Just to give we don't need to go to him, just give a quick update. John Ulmer did return to the track with a new front clip, did not lose a lap in the process. So he has rejoined the field and slightly off strategy from everybody. So we'll see if that plays into his favor later on.
Billy Smith almost being shoved off track through the kink there, and then he almost gets a punt from behind as Chris Naranjo nearly gets into him. This is massive chaos here in the mid-pack of the the prototypes. Finally, they get single file. Smith, though, has dealt with it well. He started 10th. He is up to 5th place right now.
Yeah, just taking opportunities where he can find them. He's doing really well right now, just cruising on ahead of Clifton Naranja and Jason Gerard, who are battling side by side now as they come up to the bus stop.
Yet more of these GTDs. That's Tim McLeish up ahead of them. Ooh, McLeish is blinking too, which certainly makes life even hairier. But Gerard able to get around. Looks like Naranjo, Villa, and O'Keefe all are safe through, but now the draft battle kicks off once again. Ooh, meanwhile, we're watching this battle between Cronin and McGarvey fighting for third spot. Coming down
no.
the braking.
Keefe is in the wall. Keefe got pushed up into the wall by a 3-wide incident. Has significant damage now. Yeah, it was Kevin O'Keefe in the wall on the tri-oval across the start finish line. He got into it.
Take a look at the replay real quick here. It's going to cost him.
Right now he's in another incident as well. So we got this one, and then we got another one.
Yeah, Kevin goes up to this high side here. He's against the wall. He's got nowhere to go. Nothing to. He just has cars come up into him, and then the same kind of thing happens here as he exits turn 2. We're going to see it now. He goes through turn 1, trying to regain his composure. And then as he goes through turn 2, he gets held up by a GTD and decides to take the outside. The GTD doesn't see him, and it looks like the GTD just moves over into his lane. We're going to see it right here.
Well, the GTD was being split by Clifton Navarro and him, and I mean, it was close, but I mean, that was your 8th place in your GTDs right there with Sean Fleming. So, and that was, his race might be done after that.
It is indeed. He's had to take a tow to the pits, and even though he could get back out, I doubt he'll be able to do much with it from here. We've got Corey Roonan for some reason. I didn't quite see what happened. We'll try and look into that and just figure out exactly what went down that caused him an unscheduled stop here. Definitely got some damage. It's not sure from what at this point. A lot of action has been going on in the prototypes with them going through the traffic at this point. Gerard gets himself up to 6 past Villa. And next on his list is going to be Billy Smith. Oh, maybe he's not past him because there goes Carlos right back by into the International Horseshoe.
You know, while we're watching this battle, the biggest story I think in the prototypes is that Dominic Olivier has cut down the lead down to Miguel Vigo by about 2 seconds over the last couple laps due to the traffic. So he's only 1 second behind the leader right now as we watch this battle on screen.
And we're on board currently with Jason Gerard. Carlos Villa. I believe teammates not in the point sense in this series, but it looks like Villa, Olivier, and Vigo all running the same paint scheme. So I believe they might be working together. Gets a good run, but decides to lift, so Gerard gonna back out of it. I mentioned the teams and how they are able to put them together. Just to give you the info on that, they are allowed a certain amount of points in each of those ranks. The platinum, gold, silver, and bronze are worth certain points. They can only have a maximum of 29, and platinum is worth 10. Gold is worth 8, silver 6, and bronze 5. So if you put 2 platinum people on there, then, well, you have no choice but to put a bronze or a silver in there, of course.
We're currently watching the battle for the lead in GTD, getting passed by John Ulmer, who's just coming out of that pit stop. This is the battle for the lead in GTD is between Scott McGarvey in the lead, Ryan Huff in second, and Olivier Turcotte in third. These guys have been battling quite a bit since we had the prototypes come through, and this battle's still hot.
Yeah, for you. How about for your GTD lead, Santana having to hold off Slavonic. I thought Slavonic was going to try to take advantage of it here going into the horseshoe. Now they're going to have to prototype here, try to split them up. That is the prototype of Dave Hill, and that'll break that up just a little bit as they go through the kink.
Also got Michael Overbay coming through. Overbay has not had the best start to this race, especially compared to what he's used to over in the PRL series, where he usually dominates. Wow. And yeah, this is making life very difficult for our GTD leaders. In fact, Overbay nearly loses the car coming off of turn 6 and is going to have to go the wrong way around. Usually they have to go on the high side of these GTD cars. Slavonic nearly got into him.
Slavonic, very, very good to keep his situational awareness up and make sure he doesn't get hit there. He almost came down into Overbay, but he was able to hang on to it.
Yeah, that was almost very dangerous there, and yeah, I mean Slavonic really has some of the best situational awareness out of everybody I know on iRacing, and it's so very heads up by him knowing what was going on, and ultimately, I mean, he didn't lose too much in that craziness. I mean, he's still within reach here of Santana. It might take him another lap or so to really draft back up to his rear wing, but I think he'll be attacking for that lead again here before too long.
I was about to say, yeah, and it does look like it is good news for Taj Edward fans. He's back out on track. Granted, he's going to be the last car at 9 laps down, but he is running. So he's got his wheel fixed and is at least going to try and salvage something. He took a hard hit, and he's not going to be quick on the straightaways, I don't think.
At least they found a spare. It's obviously not a hood. What would you call it? There at the front. Bonnet?
Bonnet?
I don't know. At least they found a spare one to put on there. Otherwise, it would have looked worse than it does.
We've hopped back up to the GTE leaders, the GTLMs. Scott McGarvey, Ryan Huff, and Turcotte are starting to stretch away a little bit here. Huff actually has a very good run on Scott McGarvey. Is he going to do anything with it, though?
Hey, how about your lead in the prototypes?
Yeah, that has come down. And it looks like there's not going to be a pass here in the GTEs. So let's take a look, as these are actually drivers coming up to the GTE lead. That's Olivier and Vigo, with about 1/10 splitting them.
I'm not sure if Vigo got really held up by traffic or
Greg!
Olivier... Go ahead.
That was Bradley Haley going around in turn 1.
He's trying to come back on track just as drivers are getting back on. The 428 doesn't hit anybody. Trying to see if he hit the wall, though, in the process.
I believe
he got turned around.
He got out clean, and that was on screen. We're going to take a look take one more look at this. Bradley Haley just, I believe, in the wrong place at the wrong time, had to brake too hard and got a little bit crossed up with this traffic here.
Yeah, I think Mike Young helped him around. You're going to see from above. Yep, I'd say Mike Young definitely put a little bit of contact on that Ferrari. Young continues in 8th place, but poor Bradley Haley has fallen all the way to 12th.
He's getting passed by the battle for P11 in the prototypes between Patrick Pelchak, Dean Moll, and Kyle Streikars, as well as Jason DeVries, who's on that pack as well. So there are battles going on all over the track, and the multi-class action is getting really thick.
DeVries, despite starting in 8th position, down in 13th right now. He's got some work to do. as he follows this train out of the bus stop and back onto the banking now. Right on board with DeVries. Just not gaining as much as he probably would have wanted, but this is a little bit more calm than what we were seeing a minute ago. I think drivers are finally getting into a rhythm.
I mean, it's still a lot of good battles, though, out there. I mean, this is exactly like how I thought it would play out. Just a lot of action here very early on, but still a lot of respectful racing. That closing rate of the HPD, though, is just incredible when you compare it to the GTDs.
Yeah, which right now is being dominated by Santana and Slavonic. Mike Major is a whole 2.3 seconds behind, so that gap built up quick. Could have been helped by traffic for sure. Slavonic, I doubt, is going to let Santana try and get away at this point, though, knowing he needs good finishes at the start.
He's not letting him get away, but he's also not trying to pass him either. He's doing a lot of fuel saving behind Kevin Santana, and there's not much Santana can do about it. That is, you're seeing smoke on your screen. That is the blown engine of, I believe, Taj Edwards? Yes, that is. Taj is having a worse day.
Yeah, probably leftover damage from his incident earlier, and I've had that happen here before. Where, you know, it sometimes it takes a couple of hours to blow, like in a 24-hour race, or sometimes it blows in a couple minutes, like Taj Edwards' case. But yeah, that'll be a replacement engine. They could do one, I think, before the end of the race, but it'll be many, many, many laps down.
I stand corrected. That's the blown engine of Mark Wilson, who's a GTE car. This is a new incident for us.
He's still running, so he's clearly got power. I'm checking to see what happened to him. He's had a hefty hit.
There's nothing left of that car.
This happened in the first corner. It almost seems like a glitch. I'm not sure that we'll get the replay because it was at the very start of this lap where he just lost control and it slid into the wall and the car just came to a halt, which is exactly what you don't want.
Yeah, I think I was just more the angle there, Joe, but he's coming on the pit road now, and his day may be done. Hey, how about go over to Paul Slavonic here?
Yeah, Slavonic tried to make a pass on Kevin Santana. I think maybe just carried a little bit more speed than he was expecting into turn one. Kevin Santana's braking a little bit earlier than Slavonic would like. We know how late Slavonic is on the brakes due to watching him race in the last couple seasons, but he's definitely... I'm not sure if he wants to pass right now.
Yeah, usually you would think that if he could, he would pretty quickly. Apologies there for a little bit of a connection issue. Meanwhile, behind them, let's not forget that Rosenbaum has got quite a fight on his hands in the GTD class. In fact, I think Shane Hunter is under attack from Rosenbaum right now.
Hey, how about a guy that just made a big pass, though, moving himself up into fourth position? Carlos Villa getting around Stephen McGarvey there up the HPDs. Billy Smith right behind them still. Carlos Villa started this thing in 11th position. I didn't think he was going to have that kind of speed. Watch him in qualifying. But, man, he's lit a fire here today. He's trying to get caught up to his teammates there in first and second.
Oh, and Leif Peterson has gone around in the GTLM class in turn one. He is currently parked on the apex of turn one on the wall.
Yeah, and he can't see what's going on. So, boy, this was a close one, honestly. He did make contact with Kevin Binkley in the process. We're going to see if we got the replay. Poor Binkley just got through as he was clipped, and then that little bit of contact sent him into the pit wall.
So here he comes down turn one, and yeah, he just gets spun. He comes in a little bit hot on the inside and then spins out just a little bit and makes contact with the inside wall. And there he sat for the rest of that time. He just now has gotten going ahead of Mike Major in the GTD class. That's how much time he lost.
We come back live. Stephen McGarvey does not look like he's in good shape right now because he lost another position as Billy Smith got by. But Billy Smith is not done. because he is going to move past Carlos Villa as well, or at least attempt to, but he'll have to do it the long way around down into turn 1. He brakes early, not willing to make the risky maneuver yet.
Yeah, always, whenever I got to do one of these races here, always got to give a shout out to my buddy Tony Lamberti. I'm sure he's watching. Of course, Lamberti Racing, they all have the stroke awareness stuff on the car. So, good to see those guys out there running well, and always got to say hi to Tony.
Another look to the inside, down into the Western Horseshoe. Smith still challenging Carlos. They're going to be side by side as they come up to the braking. Almost squeezed off there into turn 6, but he was given just a car's width by the number 46. This is some fierce stuff, and it's not just McGarvey in there. Jason Gerard is now rocked up to the back.
Yeah, he really rocketed up to them. It's going to be a fun little battle here right now. Now, of course, if I'm these guys, I mean, you got a 5-second gap now, 5.5-second gap to go up to Brandon Cronin. I mean, I would try to work together a little bit to maybe see if you can close some of that before I really start trying hard, but that's me, and I know you want those spots, but you also still have, about an hour and 4 minutes to go in this thing, too. So if you're going to try to catch up to somebody, now's the time to do it.
Something we don't talk about that often is the arrow wash that we watched Jason Gerard deal with as he went through the bus stop chicane. These guys are coming up to turn 1 again. It'll be interesting to see whether Billy Smith tries to make another late dive on Carlos Villa. He's not going to have enough time this time.
As far as trying to work together to gain some pace, I guess they could try and leapfrog, though it looks like drivers have been stalling out with all the aero parts on these prototypes. So then my question to you, Adam, is do you fancy trying to bump draft in one of these things?
No, I've tried it in practice, but I would never do it in a race. It's actually fun to do, but I would never do it in a race.
Yeah, I would think it works a little bit more like a scoop than a bumper there, that front wing.
You have your advantage there that this is one of the older modeled cars for iRacing. So the front end modeling isn't as precise as, say, like we talk about the Gen 6s a lot with how the Camaros especially have kind of that very slight point in the nose. You feel that more than you feel the front end on one of these things. It's actually kind of interesting. But I still wouldn't do it in a race.
And we're watching on board right now with Kevin Santana as Paul Slavonic's going for a pass on the outside. This is for the GTD lead. Paul Slavonic's going to have to outbrake Kevin Santana into turn 1. Unable to do it, but he definitely wanted that position and tried to make it work. But man, is that Merc fast.
We're just about to hit the half-hour mark, so we should see some cars coming in soon. The GTDs can go about 22 to 23 laps. We're on lap 16. These are the ones that can go the longest. The GTLMs, who are on lap 16 themselves, it looks like, from Scott McGarvey, also can go about 21 to 22 laps, so just a lap shy.
Yikes, man. Paul Slavonic had a scary moment there with John Ulmer, who thought about trying to go through in the kink and then didn't, and then ended up alongside him. And so that slowed down Paul significantly going through the kink and into the horseshoe. So he's now lost about half a second to Kevin Santana. He's going to have to make that up before he tries to make another pass. We have Jason DeVries into the pits right now.
Yep, and this is on lap 18, which is close to their window, 19 to 20 laps that they can go. He's taking a bit of an early stop, but I think he might be able to stay within it here. As he gets his fuel.
We had another person who took a pit stop before him. That was Michael Overbay. And we have actually had another wreck in the GTEs. It's Jose Gomez, who looks like he's gone around in turn 1. It's a single car incident, so we don't have to go to it, but he's recovered and now is going again in 12th from about 7th place.
Yeah, lost a number of positions, being stopped out there on the outside of the first turn as we watch Overbay come around. Overbay, after having taken his stop as the last in the field there in those prototypes, no longer, as Jason DeVries will come out behind him. You see DeVries returning onto the track, merging back into the traffic. So will we see Vigo in soon? He's on lap 19. We're expecting 20 to be the most that these prototypes can do.
And someone we haven't talked about in a while is our GTE leader, Scott McGarvey. Scott McGarvey has pulled himself away to a 2.5-second lead over the rest of the GTE field. He's done it with efficient passing and efficient processes when it comes to working with the different classes, and so he's done a great job. That's Jarrett Eaton ducking into the pits from the GTD class, but Scott McGarvey now up to 2.8 seconds. He just continues to pull away from the field.
Pac-Man's progress, though. John Paquin is up to second, ahead of Ryan Huff, who is challenging him slightly down into the first corner. In fact, he's got 2 cars pretty close behind. Turcotte is in there as well. But John, if I'm remembering correctly, gridded up 4th in his class. So he's clearly doing a little bit better than what his qualifying pace seemed to imply, and has been leading this train. Kevin O'Keefe pits from the prototypes. That should be
I
another
think
scheduled
Sylvanic's
stop.
going to go back on the attack here. No, he didn't. Okay, we don't need to go to it. It's okay.
Yeah, Sylvanic just hangs out behind. They see Rutgers Kev. Oh, is he getting damage repaired, though?
Yeah, he had that incident that happened earlier on in the race. His front end was bent in, and so it looks like the pit crew doing some good work there to get that punched out. He punched out his side pod as well, so Kevin should have some more speed coming out of the pits.
Stephen McGarvey is in. Jason Girard has been. Clifton Naranjo also pits. I think we're seeing the start of the major work going on here for the pit cycle and the prototypes.
Yeah, this is that 1/3 mark for these guys. This is where they can make it on another 2 stops another 2 stops after this. So this is exactly where they want to be.
I think 1 stop after this should be O'Keefe in for quite a while. I'm guessing that's because of his damage.
Yeah, he probably took all the time he could just to get that all fixed up, just kind of like how Ulmer did earlier on. So not necessarily a bad play. These cars, you definitely feel it when you got a little bit of damage on them. They're very damage sensitive.
Miguel Vigo has just been destroying the field lately. It's 7.3 seconds that he's ahead of his teammates, and he's coming in for his scheduled pit stop right now as he gets it down to the pit lane speed limiter. His teammate follows him. I think we're going to see everybody else coming in.
Yeah, here comes Villa, Billy Smith, Josh Wolf. Yes, he will come down.
So our highest pitter right now is Stephen McGarvey. He rides in 12th. Stevens, honestly, he is on the backstretch in the bus stop right now and being chased by Jason Girard. Shouldn't be anywhere close to Dominic once he returns to the track.
That early GTD taker that you saw was Eric Antilli, who's coming into the pits. He's going to try and do a reverse strategy here. And as we watch these 2 prototypes battling, but yeah, here comes Brendan Cronin out of the pits. The race out of the pit road is pretty tight.
Yeah, and Stephen McGarvey actually getting challenged here. Jason Girard getting challenged by Stephen McGarvey, rather. Girard winds up 6th, McGarvey in 7th. How are they going to come out among all the other cars as they got more traffic in there as well? That's Matt Owens trying to stay out of their way.
Ooh, Girard behind him, really. He dove that thing in there and almost ended up losing that spot to McGarvey for it.
All right, pit stops have been settled then in the prototypes. Your order is Vigo, Livier, Cronin, Villa, and Smith.
We just had our first taker for GTE pit stops. We don't have to go to him, but Daniel Gralty going to try a similar off strategy to Eric Antilli. So it'll be interesting to see whether that plays out for him at the end of the race. Keep his name in mind.
Oh, Luke Carbonneau just had another pit stop. Actually, no, I think maybe that was his first pit stop. And just as he exited pit lane, he spun it into the International Horseshoe. I don't think he lost any positions, but he was amongst a clump of cars. He's lucky he did not hit anybody. See, he's trying to chase down John Ulmer. Ulmer riding in 14th, about 4 seconds up the road. Since things have thinned out up at the top of the prototypes, let's check back in with some of the close battles we've got in the 2 GT classes. The GTLMs between Paquin and Huff. Oh, did Huff actually just have a mistake? Because I thought I saw he was much closer. I wonder if Huff got a slowdown. You know what? I think he did.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Yeah, he did. He clipped that cone coming there out of the bus stop.
He was way too far to the inside coming out of that chicane, and that cost him some valuable time to Paquin, considering he was within about 0.3 of a second. Oh, and Turcotte just made a mistake behind him, spinning his wheels off of the International Horseshoe. So Olivier not liking the tires here at the end of his stint.
No, and that's brought Mike Young and Daniel Johnson up to his back bumper, and so he's struggling quite a bit at the end of this stint. Mike Young and Daniel Johnson are going to be able to get him likely on this banking here before the bus stop, though we do know how fast that BMW is in a straight line, but here comes the Ferrari.
Oh, Gerard just got into it with the GTD in the bus stop. He's got pretty big damage on the front of his car. That GTD was Joey Trungale, who was running 8th in class.
And there was incredible heads up from Stephen McGarvey, who was behind him, because he slowed up in time to not get caught up in the wreck. Ooh, you can see Stephen McGarvey actually side by side with Olivier. That's Dominic next to him. He's not going to be able to make the pass. From what we've seen so far, Adam, you can get to the outside of that car down in turn 1, but I don't think we've seen anybody actually execute on the outside.
Tough to do. I mean, you have to nail the breaking point there going into turn 1 to have a really good time so much. And I really honestly believe, and people can disagree with me on this, it's fine, but turn 1 to me is the most important turn on the track, because it is so tough. It's so dependent on that line. So when you get stuck on the outside, it's hard to get out there, especially now that you got a little bit of rubber buildup out there and everything else. It's a little slicker, and it's tough to make a pass there to begin with.
Pit stops have kicked off, and the GTLMs, Turcotte, Johnson, Paquin, all pitting. Gomez is in there, Binkley, Kundinger, Schindel. Looks like the first out is going to be Turcotte, returns in 7th place, but he's going to be with a GTD car, and this might actually cause him some headaches trying to lap this slower class car.
Maybe of a slower class, but those Mercs are very fast on the banking, so Turcotte's going to have his work cut out for him to stay ahead of John Paquin behind him and pass Ryan Wash, who we know has been super fast. Ryan just took his pit stop, so that's why he's so far back in the field. But yeah, so Olivier Turcotte's got to pass him before they get out of this infield. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck behind this guy for quite a while.
You know, let's stay on this, but an update on Jason Gerard. His damage is hurting him incredibly badly. He's down to 8th. He was down to 9th for a moment as his straight line speed is suffering. And I think he's going to have to come in and get and pit rather than staying out and wait to get the repairs.
I wouldn't be surprised, in all honesty, Joe, to maybe see him try to stick it out just a little bit longer just for strategy reasons, but not much longer, maybe just a handful of laps here, because, yeah, like I was saying earlier, these HPDs really damage sensitive on the front end, so it's tough.
Scott McGarvey pits from the lead of the GTLMs. He brings along Bao, Huff, Young, and Haley. Looks like Kanchan also going to join them. Let's see where he comes out in regards to Turcotte. Turcotte's actually past pit entrance now as McGarvey's still heading towards the cones.
Is he going to get past almost all of them?
I think he is. Olivier Turcotte with a great pit stop is going to inherit the lead here in the GTLMs, but they are in amongst a lot of GTD cars.
And also now for second place HPDs, Carlos Villa, he's going to lead Brendan Cronin going to the line. It's going to be really close.
That gets broken up by Carter Kundinger in the GTE class. Very, very close for Carlos Villa, almost running into the back of Kundinger's. Kundinger went wide to avoid Brendan Cronin, but that allows Brendan Cronin to go through, and Cronin's off into the sunset, almost a second ahead already through the infield.
Kundinger's probably left wondering what just happened there as they just swamped him from either side. Somehow nobody wrecked in the process.
And just look at how much time Villa lost in that. It's going to take him a little while to get some of that back.
Certainly some interesting strategy stuff going on and pace things happening here in the prototypes. This is open setup, so some drivers could find themselves with a better set here with the sun going down.
And it's one of those things you got to do in these day-to-night transitions now is think about when you want your car to be really good. And of course, most of the time people will choose their cars to be really good at night.
Sorry to interrupt. Paul Slavonic is slow on track. What has happened to Paul Slavonic? I think he missed his pit stop. I do not see him. Yeah. He hasn't come in for one yet, and he ran out of fuel.
He did run out of fuel. Unbelievable. That was our leader in class. Paul Slavonic runs out of fuel, exiting the infield, and has to tow to get his pit stop.
Critical mistake here in the opening round for the 528. Don't need to see the replay. Just car coasted to a halt at the bottom of the banking. Only other driver able to keep going is Corey Mitchell, stretching it out to a full 23 laps, almost 24, I should say. And Major should inherit the lead now.
Now, just to recap,
goodness, we have something going on here at the exit of the infield. This is between Carlos Villa and Billy Smith again. They're in a battle with a bunch of GT cars. They almost got together there. Not worth going back for the replay, but man, it was close there for those two. Carlos Villa and Billy Smith, though, still line astern here, and they are not giving up on fighting this out for third.
Yeah, that was kicked off by essentially a three-wide situation of lap traffic, trying to work around each other, and poor Christopher Sherburne lost control of the car. Just got it back together in time as these HPDs went through. Smith still trailing Carlos Villa, trying to get onto the podium here. Now they do have Stephen McGarvey about 4 seconds behind them. I'm curious to see if Stephen can maybe run them down a little bit.
Oh, and there's been a mistake by Olivier Turcotte in turn 1, just ahead of this battle in the GTLM class. That has allowed John Paquin to get through. This is a huge story because Olivier Turcotte was the one who pitted early and came out ahead of this group, and now he's lost that position.
Wow, wonderfully done by Paquin. Worth noting that Turcotte is the only BMW within the top 10 right now, so him being able to challenge these top drivers, all these Ferraris, has been impressive. You see the tail end of his mistake, and there was Paquin just slipping by.
And that heads up there, because especially what we've seen with kind of the back end kind of break loose on those BMWs, it seems like the BMWs are particularly susceptible to that there. And he felt that happening and was fully prepared to ditch it to the outside where there's grass and not a hard concrete wall like there is on the inside there, but was able to catch the car. It's okay for him to sacrifice lead right there in order to preserve the race car, and I think that was first and foremost on his mind.
One thing that has changed now that Slavonic has had to take that tow is that's promoted Shane Hunter and Eric Intilli into second and third. So they're trying to sort out the middle and the bottom step of the podium here now. You see there's about 4/10 between them on track, so there is a lot at stake.
Yeah, and I can report that Paul Slavonic has come out of the pits after that tow in 16th position behind his first row driver Ryan Walsh, so he really lost a lot of time with that mistake.
Front row in GTD has been a bit of a curse today, unfortunately. We come onto the banking once more. That is John Ulmer, who's just going to easily go by on the high side in his prototype. And you could see there, that was Intilli trying to pull what little draft he could off of the prototype, even if it was just for a split second. Certainly not enough draft to allow him to attack here. What's going on?
Patrick Palchak just went off track, and also Corey Mitchell in the GTD class. He's back in the 10th place in GTD, but those two just went off going through the West Horseshoe.
And Mitchell's was a big hit. Oh, Mitchell had help. I don't know if we can get a replay, but Kevin O'Keefe got into him with a little bit of netcode into the Western Horseshoe. Oh, there it is right there. That big thwomp into the tire barrier. Blue and white HPD is O'Keefe. Just was not expecting him to break when he did. And it's, wow, that was actually awful close. Just maybe half a second slower there for that HPD you were talking about, Lindy.
Hey.
And he would have been slammed into.
So just so you know, GTLM's Oliver has retaken the lead from John Paquin.
Oh.
And this is right ahead of a battle for 6th and 7th in the HPDs as well between Dominic Olivier and Joshua Wolf, who are both trying to cut through. And these two battles, neither of them want to give any room. So amazing to see just how much. Look at that. That is Olivier Turcotte trying to think about pulling in front of Joshua Wolf to try and let him by, and not able to do it.
And they're coming up on the GTD car of Martin Roy, so the traffic woes are not over for them yet. He flashes his lights at Roy, but Roy holds the inside line. Coming into turn 6, Paquin right underneath him tries to get the power down on that Ferrari.
Roy almost slid into the outside wall, and if he would have came right back down into Oliver and both John.
That is a close your eyes moment for any driver. It's one of the most tense moments you can have. We're gonna watch here from Martin Roy as he comes off of the infield onto the banking and just almost loses it under the power. So close.
Nice catch from him. Saved his car and saved the cars of Turcotte and Paquin in the process. Wonder if he even realizes he really took out the leaders in one of the other classes. Certainly we'll learn once he comes and watches the broadcast back. But as we watch the battle for the lead here in the GTLMs, they get overtaken by another prototype. Pelchat now swings through.
Oh my goodness!
And Paquin bringing him in.
The HPDs are starting to get a little gutsy here. Joshua Wolf in 7th place just took turn 1 very hot. You don't have to go look at it, but he almost hit the tire barrier trying to get past Dominic Olivier. And man, these battles, you know, usually we see after the first pit stop, everyone calms down a little bit. That is not the case today.
Jason Girard has said enough with his damage. He's come into the pits and he's getting it repaired. Again, no spare car in this series, so if you do get that damage, you have to sit and wait patiently for your crew to try and replace anything that is banged up. Staying with his battle for the lead here in the GTLMs. That is Olivier Turcotte in the BMW, the blue and white machine. Then the red, white, and blue of John Paquin there behind him in the Ferrari, giving another launch onto the oval. From what I know of John, though, I wonder if he's just going to sit back here and wait.
I don't know, Joe. He's been looking pretty spicy recently, but here he is, managing his pace a little bit. He's not trying to pass here into the bus stop. You might be right, but it's not. He seems like he's been trying to manage his gap a little bit to try and get a good opportunity for a pass. Look how much of a run he has here. They're catching up to the back of Joey Trungill, who's going to go high. This might box him in, so he might not make the pass here, but he definitely doesn't look to me like he's saving that much fuel.
He's going to gain as they come off the banking. There's that speed of the Mercedes, keeping right up with the GTE cars. Yeah, hard to tell based on this run, because even though he started to close up, he certainly wasn't really close enough to have a go unless he was very desperate. Oh, wide once again through turn 1 for Turcotte. And Turcotte gathers it together before John can have a go at him.
Yeah, and another thing that they have to think about is that with Turcotte making these mistakes in the lead, John Pinkman's got to be thinking, you know, we had about 2 seconds over Scott McGarvey exiting the pits, but Scott's now cut it down to about 1.7. So if that gap closes any further, John's going to have to go through in order to try and maintain his gap over Scott McGarvey and Ryan Huff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whoa, as there was a bobble just ahead of McGarvey and Huff. That was Joey Trungale who nearly lost it. We didn't see it on screen. We're riding on board with Paquin still, but what is a 2-car battle for the lead could suddenly become a 4-car fight here, depending on if Huff and McGarvey can continue to reel them in the fashion they've done so far.
By the way, Paul Slavonic has rejoined the race. He is running in 13th position, actually trying to go for 12th right now, but that's still a tough break for Paul. Still feel bad for him there.
I think he has gotten the 12th spot from what I'm seeing on my timing and scoring.
Yeah, he did coming across the line there.
I don't think he's going to have he's going to have to really hustle to get up to the next car. Marty Jeffries is 13 seconds away. There is 39 minutes left, so a little bit less than half the race, but if Jeffries is quick, that's still a considerable gap to make up. Down through that first corner once again, we watch Scott and Ryan. Don't forget Mike Young back there. Young is within less than a second of this battle for third currently in GTLMs.
Yeah, that's a good place to be, especially if Ryan Huff isn't trying to get by due to fuel saving. That means that's going to back up Ryan Huff behind Scott McGarvey into Mike Young, and Mike can just continue pushing forward, continue pushing that gap a little bit, and trying to get into the draft range of Ryan Huff. That draft range is about 0.9 seconds, and that's what allows you to pull significant speed on these bankings. So Mike Young looking there, he's got it right now, 0.8, so let's see whether or not he can hold on to it on the straight.
We had a problem with Carlos Villa. Our third place driver in the prototypes has gone around, and that was lap traffic. It was Jerry Mueller coming out of the bus stop. Let's look at the replay here.
Oh, net code, unfortunately for him too.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for the net code, they would have gotten out of that one okay.
Boy, he was eager, though. Look at him launch side by side off of the chicane, and there you see the net code. Billy Smith was that blue car that just squeaked through and inherited the third place.
Now, the good news is, in Carlos Villa's case, though, is that his front air dam, his front splitter, whatever you want to call it, it looks to be in pretty good shape after all that. Side pod's a little bit damaged, so yeah, it'll be a little bit slow in aero, but I think he'll at least have some pace here. Oh, as he gets into the back of another GTD right now. That's Mike Major. That's your leader of the GTDs.
Oh, and Tilly now inherits the lead there. Shane Hunter promoted to second. Tim McLeish finds himself in third.
I can't explain this one. It's
if you're Mike Major right now, you know, if these were real cars and in real pits, I'd be having to hold my driver back from having to go tear somebody up, I think.
It's all been going off just now because Dominic Liviere also had an off-track moment where I think he had a little contact with some of the slower cars. He's come back into 6th place. That's allowed Stephen McGarvey up into 4th. Wolf has found himself in the top 5 after starting in 9th.
And guys, Eric Antilli started 10th in class in the GTD class. This guy has climbed his way up the field, and most of it's been through no fault of his own with Rex ahead of him. So he's done impressive.
The last season was the most topsy-turvy within the GTD class, I will say. So this
Oh,
kind of
we've had
carries
an
on
incident.
that.
We've had an incident in the prototypes as well. Joshua Wolf has been sent around.
This happened in the
Oh,
International Horseshoe, and this was Olivier again. The Florida driver finds contact once more in the infield. You can see Wolf gets it going. It was just a little bit of contact. Let's look at the replay here.
as we come through turn one, Olivier he's getting a little bit desperate. It looks like getting a little bit impatient, and he comes up on the inside. And yeah, I mean, these are tough to call.
Certainly, drivers getting antsy out there. It was pretty well behaved for much of this race, and now suddenly you're getting a lot of contact within class and without a class. We're getting close to the next pit stops too. Wonder if that has anything to do with it. Pete Peterson has come in. And I'm not sure if this is a scheduled stop for Leaf. Let me go back and check real quick because it is a little bit early. I'm not seeing any sort of major incident from him so far.
Yeah, and if we could go to P3 in the GTE class, that has closed up significantly. Scott McGarvey and Ryan Huff and Mike Young, as I actually saw some damage on the front right of that car just as he was pulling out. But these three have come together quite a bit, and Scott McGarvey has lost 3.5 seconds to John Paquin just over the last 2 laps alone. So I think he's on a fuel strategy, Joe.
Let's stay with this battle, but Shane Hunter from the GTD class in second place is pitting early. Usually we see these GTD cars wait till the very end as they come down into the first corner here, though. The battle for third around the outside. That is Ryan Huff giving a try, and Scott McGarvey's going to fend him off. This opens the door for Mike Young. He backs out, not willing to try and take it now.
And here comes Jimbo Pfeiffer, who's going to be trying to look to get by in the prototype class. Hopefully he'll be able to do it here on the straight and the kink. But, man, this battle for third is really starting to heat up.
Tense stuff there. And Huff has got to be careful. When he opens the door like that, is almost into the back of him. That's Young having to catch his Ferrari, nearly spins it out through the Western Horseshoe as he gets closer than he wanted through there.
Definitely closer than he wanted, definitely closer than anyone wants to. That's a stressful moment. That's where your heart rate spikes through the roof, your blood pressure goes up, and you start to get that white at the edge of your vision as your adrenaline goes through the roof. That's going to put him on edge going into the next couple laps.
All this taking place well behind Turcotte and Paquin, who've been leading the way. McGarvey's got about 5 seconds to make up to our top two. Meanwhile, we've got some side-by-side action between Via and Mole for 8th place right now.
Yeah, this is in the prototype class. Via still trying to cut his way through the field, and Mole trying to defend on the outside, actually. Carlos Villa really wheeling that thing on the edge of traction there, really trying to duke it out here with Dean Mole. Dean Mole on the inside, the preferred line into the corner. Is he going to be able to hold it? Either of them going to be able to hold it. Carlos Villa getting a little bit loose, but Dean Mole holding on the bottom side. They're going to go side by side onto the bank.
On their rid. That's John Ulmer was just on his lid.
That did go in favor of Dean Mole, but let's see. We'll get back to that replay in just a minute. Villa doesn't get enough of a draft, so that will allow Dean Mole to hold on to 8th place. Let's find out what caused John Ulmer, because he had just taken another stop.
Yeah, it looks like he just went wide in the Western Horseshoe. See if we're able to get the replay going here.
This is a whole 2 minutes ago for John Ulmer. He gets, he starts to lose it, and he gets hit by Daniel Johnson. Fortunately, it looks like we won't be able to get the replay. Johnson just came to the spinning HPD and had nowhere to go and wound up turning him on his top. "31 minutes left. Who's actually going to make it to the second pit stop?" We didn't have many retirements up until recently, and now look at this. We've lost Corey Roon, Sean Fleming, Mark Wilson, Mark Kudrowski, Corey Mitchell is out. Taj Edwards has put another engine in it, and he's gotten back out there. Mike Major, with his damage, has been sitting taking long repairs, along with Jerry Mueller.
And I think we're going to have some pit stops in the GTEs. That is Scott McGarvey and Ryan Huff going into the pits together, allowing Mike Young to slip through. This is from third place in the GTE class. So these guys, looks like they're pitting right around the half-hour mark. They're going to get out of the pits with half an hour to go. That's going to give them enough fuel to go to the end.
Will someone be able to save a little more than the other here? Let's wait and see if someone leapfrogs.
And we actually... Oh, never mind. It was a single car incident. Bradley Haley got a little bit loose into turn 1 and was able to keep it going. Almost got hit, but wow, look how close they are coming out of the...
Yeah, Huff out ahead of McGarvey. But Young stayed out. So I wonder if Young, now that he's freed up from those cars ahead of him, could maybe get himself a couple quick laps here. That makes Ryan Huff our highest pitter. He's returning in 10th position. Oh, and Carlos Villa is going to pit from the prototypes as well. I think this is scheduled for the number 46, as he is sharing a pit stop with one of the GTDs. DeVries also pits. Josh Wolf. Remember, we saw him get spun earlier? Well, he's been claiming position after position. He's back up to 7th. Just got by Dean Mole recently.
Impressive recovery drive for him. Josh Wolf doing a great job today. Just plowing ahead, just keeping your head down, turning laps. Sometimes the best thing you can do in a long race like this is just survive. And Josh Wolf showing why that's quality today.
Right, we're down past that half-hour mark, so we are pretty certain that everybody is going to be pretty comfortable to make it to the end. In the past, this track has been a little bit thirsty, but they last season upped the fuel levels, and that's made it looks like a little easier to try and figure out how you want to do the strategy. You watch Wolf continue on. I'm waiting to see when we get more of our GTLM drivers pitting, but so far, not really many takers other than the two that we saw, Huff and McGarvey.
I would expect John Paquin in the second place of the GTLM drivers to go quite a ways beyond what Olivier Turcotte does, just because he's been sitting behind him ever since they came out of the pits the last time, just saving fuel on the long straights. We're looking at him on screen now as he goes to the bus stop. John has just been on a fuel-saving run this entire stint.
And what's interesting is this is two different makes, but they get similar mileage. Both the Ferrari and the BMW can go about 20 to 21 laps. They're getting ready to start lap 37. So in about 4 more laps time, you will see them have to come in.
Jimbo Pfeiffer has come into the pits from the prototype class. He comes in from about 10th or 11th place, and he's taking a stop. Carlos Villa's stop, though, is taking quite a while, Joe.
I noticed that as well. I think he's getting some damage repaired or something out there. Remember, he did have a little bit of contact at one point, if I'm remembering correctly, and he's out of the car. Not sure what's going on. Pfeiffer comes on out in the meantime. Stephen McGarvey is pitting. Wonder if we could get a little love, though, for the 618. Second place driver, Brennan Cronin. He's 12 seconds behind our leader, but I do believe this is where he will finish, even though he hasn't taken his pit stop yet. Unless he has some major dramas, he has got himself into a nice little spot. He started in 7th, has raced through the drama of everybody else, and got himself a handy podium on the cards.
Yeah, Cronin, we haven't talked about him much tonight, but he's just being Mr. Consistent right now and sitting up there in that second position. And just an impressive drive from him. It's one of the things we don't talk about a lot, but some of the best drivers, the drivers that sponsors like, the drivers that teams like, are the ones that are consistent, that aren't super dramatic, but get those top 10 finishes, those top 5 finishes, and the podium, even better.
As he comes around, should see him
Oh.
in very soon here.
And Turcotte
Yep, there
is
he
coming
goes.
into the pits from the GTLM lead as well, just ahead of Brendan Cronin.
Mike Young stays out. He'll inherit second place. Where is Huff currently? Huff is heading out of the bus stop. Turcotte, who was well ahead before these stops started, should have a comfortable gap unless he has something dramatic happen here in the pits. Watching to see, and he is gone with a 17-second stop. Nicely done.
Interestingly, that is a little bit longer than Ryan Huff's 13.7 second stop and Scott McGarvey's 14.2 second stop, so he needed more fuel, and that's because he's been leading this race from the front, so that's been a lot more difficult, a lot more fuel consuming. So he comes out, he's lost some time to Ryan Huff. Before this whole thing cycled through, he was about 7 or 8 seconds ahead of Ryan Huff and Scott McGarvey, and that's been cut down to 4 seconds.
All right, we're seeing the last of our prototype pit stops. Vigo has been in and out. Cronin has as well. Billy Smith returns in third legitimately for a guy that qualified in 10th. That is a good jump forward. Olivier comes out in fourth, it looks like. See Stephen McGarvey rounding out your top 5. Now, am I seeing correctly? Patrick Pelchat. Someone check to see if he's got any sand in that cockpit, because I think this guy was sandbagging. 19th on the grid, and he winds up in 5th after the second stops are done.
That's an impressive move. It's possible. I mean, well, it's not entirely possible. You can't do much alternate fuel strategies with these HPDs, but that's an impressive drive today.
Wow, so if Pelchat can get his qualifying sorted out, then he could be looking at some good results this season. That's a hefty climb. That puts him ahead of Josh Wolf, who we know is incredibly fast himself.
You know, another driver I want to give some credit to is the second place driver in the GTD class. That is Tim McLeish. Tim has been driving a fairly quiet race. We haven't talked about him at all today. And he is within 2 seconds of the leader, Kevin Santana. Now, granted, both Paul Slavonic and Mike Major had trouble from the lead of this pack, and they were significantly ahead of Kevin Santana and Tim McLeish. But Tim has been able to close about a 5-second gap down to 2 seconds during this run. So expect him to be up there fighting with Kevin Santana at the end of this race.
Wow. Just great stuff from the 95. We ride on board with them. The lights are now very much on. You could see that there's not much of the sun still shining off on the horizon. Heading through the chicane here now for Tim McLeish, continuing on, trying to see what he can do to chase down our leader, get himself a win. Still waiting on our GTE drivers, GTLM drivers to come and take a stop. They can go 2 or 3 more laps if they want to stretch it all the way. In fact, our leader, John Paquin, is going to stay out.
Mike Young stayed out as well, which is impressive considering he was leading. He was behind third place for quite a while as well. So all these drivers who were behind other drivers when they were on the banking, they have been able to draw out quite a few more laps into these runs.
Bradley Haley is going to pit. He's got his Ford GT down in his stall. Turcotte obviously is easily going to go by. So is Huff and McGarvey. I believe Daniel Gralty is the one he'll want to be watching out for. And Haley's already going as Gralty is just coming off the banking.
So Haley should be able to grab that position handily. Let's see now. It's gonna be close, but There goes Haley off the limiter, going through the very tight pit exit. We haven't seen anyone hit that tonight, and that's far cry over what we saw last night, where quite a few people hit it. But Haley going to pull out ahead, about a second ahead of Daniel Gralti, once all things considered.
Yeah, not super comfortable if we're honest. That puts Haley back to 11th, still waiting on a lot of cars to pit, though. They'll get some positions back from. Always love those ambient lights there on the sides of the Ford as the sun goes down.
So our highest running driver in the GT LM class that has pitted is Olivier Turcotte. He's got about 4.5 seconds over Ryan Huff, and he's trying to make this pit strategy work. He's definitely gaining a lot of time. He's faster than these midfield pack drivers. We're taking a look at that BMW. It's an impressive drive from him, for sure.
I'm trying to think. I'll have to check the stats here to see whether or not he ever got a win. Because he finished 4th in the championship. And just running through real quick, because I don't believe he did. Yeah, I'm not seeing a victory at all anytime last season from Olivier.
Keeps this up. I mean, he'll have one here tonight. And he's been the class out there. I mean, a little bit of, battling with the Queen earlier on, but I mean, since that broke up, they just haven't anybody close to him.
Pelchat is just flying out there. He now gets 5th place and away from Stephen McGarvey. The 56 now at a top 5. Let's see, he's got a 1.5 seconds up to Olivier, so he's not done yet.
No, but we've seen how aggressive Olivier has been recently, so I would guess that he's not going to try and allow Patrick to get by very easily. So Patrick, though, cutting through the field, getting quite close to the back of Scott McGarvey, and that's Ryan Huff and Scott McGarvey, that battle that we've been talking about for quite a while. And so Patrick's going to go by, but Steve McGarvey super close behind him going out of the banking. Let's see whether or not Steve wants to get by or whether he thinks Patrick's just raw pace is faster.
So far, he's just hanging on with him. Nothing doing down into the bus stop chicane. They've got an HPD behind them, but that's Kevin O'Keefe, so that's not for position. Off onto NASCAR 3 and 4. McGarvey's going to get a nice little tow here on Pelchat. He can fight back if he wants to. He's going to start getting closer, and no, I'd say he lifts a little bit here.
I think he's definitely used that. And also, you got to remember, Pelchat's also having a little bit of a tow here from Daniel Johnson. And they're both going to try to clear Johnson here going into turn 1. And McGarvey, though, going a little bit on that high side. See him slip a little bit there when he tries to get the pedal down and the power down, but is able to get away from that scot-free. Now he's got some other cars to cut in front of. That's going to be Oliver Turcotte in front of him, as well as Lionel LaPratt. Lionel LaPratt's going to squeeze him a little bit on the high side. He's going to swing back around here and try to get him before the kink. He'll pass him before the kink, and now he's got Oliver Turcotte in front of him. And
he makes contact! No! Turcotte saves it, though. He's kept it out of the wall, but that's a lot of time lost.
Ooh.
Let's look at that one more time for Olivier. Great reaction there from the number 52. And we've seen this a couple times now where it seems like the HPDs just don't always anticipate the GT cars braking as early as they do into this horseshoe.
Well, to be fair, Joe, that was a little bit of indecision from Turcotte. He was looking right and then decided to, or looking left and then decided to go right. And then that's, I think, what caught the HPD surprised. But Turcotte knew what was happening as soon as it happened and locked down those brakes and was able to keep himself intact.
And this is a decisive moment because Paquin has pitted. Young stays out. Remember, Paquin is racing Turcotte here.
Paquin's stop was 12.8, Joe. That's the quickest stop we've seen today for the GTEs. With that, plus the incident that Turcotte just got in, he's going to come out significantly ahead of Turcotte.
Yeah, that's a big gap between them. Paquin getting his speed up now, so we're getting the gap showing up more accurately, and I'm looking at about 10 seconds between them. 8 seconds.
That's going to be brutal. I mean, I don't know, unless something else happens, you're not going to be able to get that back in 16 minutes.
Now the question becomes, can Mike Young do anything? He was 6 seconds behind John Paquin before John Paquin stopped, so he can't save that much fuel. But if Paquin gets into trouble with Turcotte, or if he gets into trouble himself with traffic, it's possible Mike could make something work here.
Right on board with Mike as he comes around. He should be pitting this time. I think this is the farthest that any of the GTEs should be able to go. So we're on lap 43 currently for Young, who leads the way in this GTLM class. Is he staying out? No, he's making a liar out of me. He's going to keep going.
Okay, so here's another interesting story. In the GTD class, Kevin Santana currently leads because Eric Antilli and Tim McLeish took pit stops. Now, Eric Antilli is about 42 seconds behind Santana as Sheldon Rosenbaum pits for second. But this is a big story because that's about how long the pit delta is. So it's entirely possible that Eric Antilli and Kevin Santana could be battling for the end of this race in the GTD class.
You see Santana on screen, lapping Martin Roy within his own class. Lets him go on his way. Duprat now in pit lane.
Yeah, along with Sheldon Rosenbaum in front of him.
Santana's still got a ways to go before he gets back around to pit lane. Until he continues on, McLeish does as well. Rosenbaum is back out with his second stop completed and returns in fourth.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Kevin Santana got held up significantly in the infield, so that opportunity is disappearing as we speak. He's got no cars to draft off of ahead of him, and he's got Martin Jeffries and Martin Roy who are battling for position behind him, so that's going to be a tough thing for him to deal with as well.
And
they almost wrecked behind him!
Whoa, once again, everything happens at once. I was just about to say Pelchat had a spin. That was a little tense there through the bus stop chicane. Pelchat was of his own doing, by the way, so he wound up losing positions to Wolf, Mole, and McGarvey, and is now running in eighth.
And Mike Young has come in from the lead of the GTLM class, so Olivier Turcotte just going through the bus stop now. I'm not sure if Mike's going to have made enough time to stay ahead of Olivier.
Paquin also off the banking.
11.8 though.
Oh, that's quick. That's very quick. He might actually be with Paquin here. Oh, it's going to be very, very tight. There you see him coming off pit lane. They're going to be side by side potentially. Paquin coming off the corner. He gets a good shot. Mike Young just behind him by less than a second, flashing his lights, letting him know he's there. The battle is on for the win.
And Olivier Turcotte is 8 seconds behind these two, so he lost a lot of time in the traffic trying to cut through the rest of the GTLM field to get back up to them. Mike Young and John Paquin basically have this battle themselves.
Yeah, what a difference clear track can make, as Paquin just seems like he's been able to catch people a little bit more advantageous time, and where Turcotte's still in the mix of it. I mean, he just had to stay off Ryan Huff. He's back there fighting off Ryan Huff for position right now.
As we see Huff try to get himself the launch up and onto the banking. They're going to be split by strikers. He gets through. This is a good launch, though, from Huff. He'll have the slipstream from Turcotte. The Canadian is going to be under serious threat here. Oh, is down to the inside, and HPD has to try and weave their way through. 3 wide for a moment. He's on the outside as they break for the corner. Inside for the next part. Oh, but he cuts it through the bus stop. Olivier Turcotte is going to lose more time in another position to Scott McGarvey now.
It's all take and no give time on this track right now. That was Ryan Huff saying, I am not moving. We have all taken our stops. He may have been fastest before, but I've got this position now, and he takes it commandingly.
That's going to give him third place and get him onto the podium. But what about this battle for the lead in the GTLMs? Young, 2/10 behind Paquin, and following right in his tire tracks down through turn 1 with 11 minutes to go. How aggressive is Mike Young going to be? He was second to Stephen McGarvey in the GTE class at the end of the championship last season. Young is a contender.
And I can report in the GTD class, Kevin Santana came in and took his final pit stop, and it was half the amount of time in the pit box as Eric Antilli. So he's got about a 12-second lead over Kevin Santana going into this final stint. So Kevin Santana, all he has to do is just hold on to it and be smooth, and he'll come home with the win in the GTD class.
That's Young there, you see, in the white machine. John Paquin in the blue, white, and red. And he's starting to gain with the slipstream. Does Young have a go? No, he lifts before they get to the braking for the bus stop.
He's going to have to set him up, I think, Joe. He's going to have to set him up as they exit the bus stop to try and make a pass coming to the line. I think that's the best opportunity they have. That is very close between Kyle Strikers and Clifton Norano.
Yeah, I think they're bouncing off each other right there a little bit. As that HVD battle is for position as well. Obviously not for the lead in class. I just saw Pelchat coming down pit road, and he is all tore up.
Ooh. So
he lost it on the exit of the bus stop. A single car incident, hit the curbing, and then did that classic thing where he split up into the outside wall.
Oh, and we almost had an incident between Mike Young and John Paquin. John Paquin taking the brakes a little bit harder as we see Patrick Pelchak exiting his car, but Mike Young got very close to hitting the back of Paquin and might have actually tapped.
Let's take a look at the replay here. Yeah, there is going to be slight contact between them. Watching from on board, Young just does not quite anticipate things right. And you can see he tries to straight line it, almost goes into the grass in the process to avoid hitting him. Jason Gerard also in for his final stop, his extra third stop after the damage he got earlier on. Boy, our current champion only going to take a 15th place today. This is what we've tend to come to expect here from the Autobahn series. You get to these final 10 minutes, and, well, you better be ready for some excitement. Let's put it mildly. On board with Paquin. Continue to look back at Young across the tri-oval and the start-finish line one more time. Paquin is a race winner in this series, but not a champion yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we all remember the dive bomb that happened to the real Daytona 24 a couple of years ago. Hopefully that we don't see anything like that today, but Mike Young is definitely sizing up places where he can attack John Paquin. I saw him look to the inside there just for a split second in turn 1 before going back out to his normal line. So Mike Young is definitely sizing up John and trying to figure out the best way to get by.
He's reeled that time back in that he lost from that little glancing blow. A little bit of a wobble, though, there off of the Western Horseshoe. I think Young is certainly pushing at this point.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. It's a good opportunity to try and get... I think Young thinks he's faster than Paquin on race pace, so he thinks if he can get by, he might have the opportunity to pull away from Young, because from Paquin rather, because we saw him take that braking opportunity that, you know, he got really close to Paquin on braking, and so I think he thinks that he can outbrake Paquin. So if he could do that, he might have an opportunity to pull away.
Well, of course, at the same time, though, at a place like Daytona, you know, the draft is a great equalizer. Could Mike also be maybe a little bit in the back of his mind that you know, Paquin will be able to keep up with him in the draft and remain a threat? I mean, could he just be simply waiting to make a more aggressive move until the last lap and not give Paquin a chance to get back by.
This is the second time in a row, both coming off of turn 6 and then off of the bus stop. He ran him down very quickly. So I think there's some merit to your theory there, Adam, because it looks like in a straight line, the 21 is the quicker of the two.
And while we're watching this, Olivier Turcotte's still trying to make his way by Ryan Huff for third position and having no luck of it. Ryan Huff, Olivier Turcotte, and Scott McGarvey have once again come together for this three-way battle for the last spot on the podium. And Olivier Turcotte is giving it his all, but Ryan Huff just placing his car exactly where he needs to be to not get past.
And if he's not careful, Scott McGarvey could have an opportunity to try and sneak by Turcotte, especially if he finds himself on the outside of one of these long extended corners. You can see all three of them separated by less than a second right now. Just before Vigo, our overall leader, gets through. Now, I mentioned that Vigo had a gap of, what was it, about 11 seconds, I want to say, at one point. That is down to 9 seconds. Not something that he needs to be sweating bullets about, but the 618 seems to be making a little bit of inroads.
Didn't make any inroads that last time by. Vigo was 2 seconds faster than Brennan Corn, so that gap had to have been actually a little bit shorter a little while ago when we were watching that other battle. So maybe it was lap traffic, maybe Vigo just kind of backed off a little bit just because he didn't need to force the issue. I don't know. Could have been a number of things, but that gap is starting to stretch back out. Oh, here comes Oliver Turcotte on Ryan Huff on the outside of him here.
He's got the speed and he's got a nose ahead, but he doesn't have the inside line, which we've seen is the desirable place to be here into turn 1. Huff tries to take advantage of it, gets a little bit of ground back from him, and now he's fully ahead by the time they're at the apex. Turcotte has to give it up.
Yeah, and guys, this is the same story that has been rinse and repeat for the last 3 laps. Turcotte, if he's going to try and make it by, he's got to take an opportunity of a mistake almost like that one from Ryan Huff, or try and get to the inside on turn 1. If he doesn't get that inside line, there's no way he's getting by.
At 4 minutes left to go, we're going to have 2 laps left at the next time by the line for Miguel Vigo. He's actually, is he coming up close to Young and Paquin? He is. He might deny them an extra lap of battling.
Now, it looks like that is going to be what's going to happen, because he's going to take this white flag and he's going to pass them the next, like during the white flag lap. So Mike Young, the next time around the oval, that's going to be his opportunity, but he has to know that that's going to happen.
Not as close this time. They see the distance between them is extended to about 0.5 of a second, and that is Vigo approaching. As he gets the 2 to go, he's going to split them. Easier braking for him down in this first corner means he shouldn't really hold them up still. Look at how much Young gained down into the braking at turn 1 there.
Oh,
and Turcotte's got the inside of Huff. Oh, but he gives it away. What happened there?
They were banging doors coming across the line NASCAR style. This was much rougher than I was expecting to see from Ryan Huff and Olivier Turcotte, and Scott McGarvey is looking on all this.
Wow, oh my goodness, there was inches between them down through the international horseshoe as well. Turcotte is throwing, he's got the gloves off at this point. He's throwing the rule book out. It is a just brawl to see who can take this 3rd position. As they come up onto the oval one more time, they're going to get the white flag the next time they cross the line. Another battle that I've been keeping an eye on is Wolf and McGarvey, and actually they're side by side right now. This is for 5th in the prototype class, and they're coming up on traffic as they flash their lights.
Oh, Mike Young just, Mike Young just got around Paquin going into the bus stop. He finally struck.
And that happened just as we saw that pass between Wolf and McGarvey. McGarvey taking 5th place. Let's see if we can get a replay, because this was brave stuff from Mike. Sets him up. No defensive move from Paquin, interestingly.
I think Paquin
Mike waited
thought
to the last second to do it.
Yeah, I think Paquin thought that Mike was going to bail out of that move, but he didn't.
White flag is out for Miguel Vigo. Just ahead of them. Oh, a little bit of a look to the inside there we saw on screen from Paquin, though. Didn't manage to make the pass stick. Wonder if he wants to be in that spot. No change for position in 3rd, I can tell you. In fact, Turcotte almost lost 4th to McGarvey. So many things to watch here at the end. All the battles that are happening everywhere. The only one we don't have a battle for up at the front is between Santana and Antilli, as he is a long ways ahead.
All right, Joe, this is Paquin's opportunity now. Paquin's got to be able to make a move here, but the best opportunity for him to do it on this white flag is to set him up out of the bus stop. We'll see that once we see Vigo across the line.
They let that HPD go through. Let's see what the exit is going to be like, and then after, well, nope, we're going right to Vigo now, because Vigo comes out of turn NASCAR 4. And this looked like an easy victory for Miguel Vigo, returning to the series here at Daytona in round 1. Let's head back to Mike Young. It's going to be a side-by-side battle. Side draft almost happening there, with Paquin looking to get his nose ahead. It is awful close. It's going to be inches at the line. Who is it going to be? And it's going to be Young who takes the win over Paquin.
Close stuff there.
Wow. Just incredible. Meanwhile, Kevin Santana, as he comes to the line, a victory that I think he will relish. It kicks off his attempt at claiming the championship that he lost out on a great note, winning here in Florida. So that was 1/100th between Young and Paquin at the line.
What a phenomenal finish from those two. And what a move from Mike Young to get him on that bus stop the lap before he was expecting a fight. Wow. And a good battle from John Paquin to try and get that back at the line.
We didn't get to watch it, but Huff and Turcotte were separated by less than a tenth as well for that 3rd place when they crossed. So Huff was your 3rd place finisher. Let's take a little replay at that action. They had, who was that with them?
That was Scott
Jared
McGarvey,
Eaton,
I
so-
believe. Oh, yes, Jared Even. And yeah, they actually made a little bit of contact between Turcotte and Huff as they come across the line, and that was because they were trying to go past the GTD.
You know what? I think Huff used him as a pick a little bit. Yeah, he tried to squeeze him out there, and that's what interrupted his momentum. Great stuff here. What a fantastic start here for the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. It's going to take us to break, though. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Daytona International Speedway. We just watched round 1 of Season 9 and the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. Miguel Vigo, he's raced here before, but it's been a little bit spotty at times. He winds up taking the victory after starting on the front row with Brendan Cronin a distant second, 11 seconds between himself and the number 7 car. But still, a second place from 7th is a nice achievement. Same thing for Billy Smith. We were surprised at his qualifying because he was focusing on the race, because despite starting in 10th, he wound up in 3rd. Our pole sitter, Dominic Olivier, just did not have a good race. He was a little sloppy today, unfortunately. He wound up 4th, and then Stephen McGarvey finished P5. Josh Wolf climb up to 6th is not bad, with Dean Mole topping him a big time. 16th to 7th for the number 79. We didn't give him enough credit for that good job he did. Clifton Naranjo finished in 8th, with Kyle Strykars in P9, starting 17th. Jason DeVries, just an unusual anonymous race for Deep Freeze. He used to be much faster. Started 8th and he finished 10th. Luke Carbonneau had some problems out during the race. That wound up with 11th for him. Michael Overbay with 12th, and Dave Hill 13th. Jimbo Pfeiffer, the first of the prototypes that was a lap down, took 14th. Jason Girard, with heavy damage at one point, wound up a lap down as well. 15th for him, with Kevin O'Keefe returning to the track after issues and finishing 16th.
Yeah, going to your GTLM now. Mike Young taking away the dramatic victory there over Josh McQueen. We'll talk to him here in just a couple of minutes. Ryan Huff coming home 3rd in class. 4th in class is going to go to Oliver Turcotte. And then back and further on the running order, Scott McGarvey will come home in 5th in class. Daniel Gralty up next there. Then Bradley Haley, Vance Bow. I don't think we talked hardly at all today about Vance Bow, but good strong finish showing from him. And then Jose Gomez, Carter Cunninger, Daniel Johnson, Kevin Blinky, 28th overall, Mark Schindel, Robert Kantsian, and then that will round out your GTLMs. Go ahead and throw it over the GTDs, and Adam.
Yeah, Kevin Santana taking home the win after a couple of unfortunate incidents, but we'll get to those folks later. Eric Antilli climbed his way back as far as he could up to 2nd place, with Sheldon Rosenbaum, another driver we didn't talk a lot about today, coming home in 3rd ahead of Tim McLeish. Shane Hunter comes home in the 5th position, with Lionel DePratt in 6th. And we have Leif Peterson, a GTLM, who had some trouble late on in the race. And we have Martin Roy coming home in the 8th position, with Ryan Wash in 9th, and Paul Slavonic in 10th position. That's as far as he could climb back after he did not feel the car. Then we have Chris Sherburne coming home in 11th, with Joey Trungale coming home in 12th. And we have Patrick Pelchak after his incident coming home there in the 43rd overall. Then we have Jared Eaton coming home in the 13th position, with Marty Jeffries coming home in 14th for the GTD class. Joe?
Taj Edwards actually did get back out despite wrecking his car so badly that he had to tow and then blowing his engine after he got it fixed. He wound up 46 in the end. Then you got some DNFs of some big names up here. Carlos Villa down there, John Ulmer, Matt Owens probably was expecting a little bit better. Newcomer Jerry Mueller wound up 50th. And then everybody from here on down, of course, was a DNF for today. We've got our winner ready to talk to us, Miguel Vigo, racing from Florida. Seems to enjoy his home track. So let's have a little bit of a chat with the number 7 as we pull him in. And Miguel, it was certainly an interesting race behind you. Once you got up to the front, it didn't look like you got bothered too much.
Yeah, I mean, me and Dominic try to have a little bit of a plan. Because we were trying to save field together. And then just at the start there, he just kind of he wasn't sleeping so much, but the reaction time was a little bit slower, and I think in one of the corners he gave up a little bit of time, and at that point I think I had like 1.5 seconds or so I broke the draft. So it's just better to just cut loose and then just go as quick as I can for those first couple laps, and then try and save some fuel by myself so I could do the extra lap, which was important here, especially since it was only 90 minutes.
Now, I noticed you had similar paint schemes to Dominic and to Carlos. and I see that you all three hail from Florida. Though you can't have a team with all three drivers in the same class, do you three work together and kind of prep together for these?
Actually, we've been so busy prepping for Daytona and the Daytona prototype, we didn't have as much time to prep for here. So we kind of just went into it just doing a couple laps and then just kind of see where everybody was at tonight. But I'm sure the other guys will be a little bit more prepared, for the next round. Unfortunate that they kind of ran into some traffic and some trouble. I know Dom got hit by a GT, and then he, was losing speed on the straights, etc. His car was pretty much broken, and Carlos had to retire. But yeah, we'll definitely try to keep it together for the next round and see if we can work a little bit more together.
Excellent stuff. Your attendance has been spotty in previous seasons. Are you going to be able to make most, if not all, the rounds here for season 9?
Actually, this is my first season with Autobahn. I know some of the other guys have ran it in previous years, but this year we just kind of wanted something more in our time slot. Just something for us to do together and just have some fun. And we figured this was the best way. And we've known John for a couple years now, and great guy, and he's ran a pretty good league before. So we figured why not.
Yeah, that's understandable, and certainly has a lot of talent out here. Again, congratulations. Anybody you'd like to thank before we let you go?
I just want to thank my team, Geodesic, Alpine Tires Geodesic, a bunch of great guys, always do the work and all that stuff. And, we try to have as much fun as possible. And just the sponsors, Alpine Stars, GoPro, and everybody else. And you guys, of course, I've done broadcasts with you before, and you guys always do top-notch work. So looking forward to the rest of the season, and it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. That was Miguel Vigo, winner in the prototypes. Up next, I believe we've got Mike Young ready to talk to us about his win.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, Mike. Hey, great job out there, man. Fantastic battle with John Pequin. Walk us through those last few laps.
So the setup, we've been prepping for Daytona 24 for a bit. The setup we had was really good on the top end. So John was really quick through the turns. The infield, he was pulling away. Coming out of the bus stop, he was very, very quick. But I felt like I had him on top end coming into the bus stop and kind of coming around the tri-oval. So my plan was to sit behind him, look for that opportunity in the bus stop, and take it when it arrived. And that's what I did. And luckily, it worked out. I think it was a pretty crazy move, but good respect from John. I knew he would be good to race with side by side, so I wasn't too worried about hitting him. But it was definitely quite a dive bomb. But I'm glad it worked out.
Well, of course, to get the win today, you had to come up from 10 spots up on the grid in order to pull that off. So cutting through the field a little bit too. How challenging was that out there with how close everybody was on time?
It was really challenging. Qualifying was absolutely crazy tight. I think the entire field was within the same second. So running in that pack was not a whole lot of fun. I felt like I had more pace than a lot of the guys ahead of me, but there was really nothing I could do about it. And then I made a mistake and got a slowdown coming out of the bus stop, which put me even, I think, 2 or 3 more positions back. So it was a long, hard-fought battle for pretty much the entire race. I think I got pretty lucky with kind of how the pit strategy worked out and sort of the timing of the pit stops and traffic. I do need to apologize to Bradley Haley. I don't know if you guys caught that on the broadcast, but I ended up turning him around in a very confusing turn 1. So I do need to apologize for that. But yeah, it was quite a long race for me.
All right, Mike. Well, good job out there tonight. Anybody you'd like to thank here before we send you out?
I'd like to thank Jason DeVries for adding me to Automobili Node Assembly, I think is what we're called. So it's great to be part of a team. I was looking at a privateer season, so it's good to be part of something. And again, thanks to my SRN teammates for talking me through the race and helping out with setups and all that kind of stuff.
All right, good deal, Mike. Good talking with you, and hopefully we get to talk to you next time out. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Adam Linger, who's going to catch up with Kevin Santana.
Kevin, fantastic race today and good progress as you tried to make your way through the field. Fantastic race today and good win. What was it like racing out there with all that traffic?
Another Autobahn race.
Yeah, definitely one of those. And so as you were going through that traffic, did you have a lot of trouble making it through the field, or was it a pretty clean and simple race for you today?
It was pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. And does your pit strategy go as you planned, or did you have to make any changes during the race?
That's what I did, what I planned from the start. Take tires in the first one and run them down on the second and third stints.
And so how old did those tires get by the time you got to the end of the race? Were you worried about it, or was it still on pace for you?
I was still turning pretty much the same pace that I turned even during the first stint.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, fantastic win today, and we look forward to getting you some more wins in the future. Are you looking forward to next week?
Where do we race next week?
Sebring, I believe.
Yeah, Sebring. Yeah, not one of my better tracks.
All right, Kevin, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go today?
Yeah, John and all the guys that put this on week in, week out, and
All right,
every other week.
Definitely. Fantastic race today, Kevin, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
That was Kevin Santana, and Joe is going to catch up with Carter Kundinger.
Let's see what kind of exposition we can get out of Carter. You actually wound up finishing 10th in class, so a top 10 for you, but you started out well back in your field. How did it feel from your position?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just a race of survival. That was actually the first time I've ever raced the GTE cars. I decided to step down from prototype this season, and yeah, I mean, I basically just used this as practice for the iRacing Daytona 24. Just try to keep the car on track, and started a little bit towards the back with a little bit slower of a setup, especially on the straights. There were multiple times that I was sitting behind other GTEs and I just couldn't catch them with the draft. Some of them would even pull away from me in the draft. So it was a struggle, but it was basically just a race of survival for me, and it got me all the way up to a top 10.
Honestly, we expected a race of survival here, a bit of a race of attrition with it being the first round. This series, especially when it gets new drivers, tends to have a little bit of a chaotic start as everybody gets adjusted. But from our perspective, that really wasn't the case this race. I mean, what did it feel like to you? Do you feel like the behavior was pretty good out on track?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty good. Going into the season, the just pool of drivers in all three of the classes I knew was going to lead to high competition. It's really fun what John has done to this league, and he's really made this competitive and fun to look forward to. But I mean, even with that, like, it was, for the most part, it was pretty clean. I mean, I didn't run into too many issues. I just had a minor off with a GTD. But yeah, I mean, I look forward to what the rest of the season has to come.
Well, speaking of the rest of the season, up next is going to be Sebring. We stay here in Florida, but a very different track in nature with all the bumps and the technical layout of that. Do you think you can do better than the top 10? Maybe get yourself up to a top 5?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's a big hope that I can do better than top 10 with all these drivers here, especially in GTE. But I mean, to be quite honest, at this point, I'm just hoping that the bumps can throw a few of the faster drivers off, and somehow I hit all the bumps correctly. So we'll see what happens at 2.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for you again. Nicely done on the top 10, and hope to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, guys.
Carter Kundinger finished 10th today in the GTLMs. That's going to close out our interviews, and we want to give a big thank you to John Ulmer and all the people behind the scenes who help organize this league. It is a lot of them, I can tell you, that do a lot of hard work to make sure that it all runs smoothly, and they've had a lot of experience to try and do that. Let's see if I can avoid the word "a lot" for the rest of this. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel. Facebook is /Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support our channel, we've got a merchandise store. It's gsrc.storenv.com, and the link is in the description below. Head on over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already, and make sure and subscribe. Very easy to do so. Just click the big red button that says subscribe. As we mentioned, we're heading off to Sebring. That'll be Monday, January 27th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.